I don't know if it's officially
Yeah.
10.
But also, it's really
It is very funny to specifically.
Good morning, Dawn.
Good morning, class. Today is Thursday. Today is Thursday. Yesterday was Wednesday. Tomorrow will be Friday. Today is Thursday. There. That's all we're doing today.
Is that a Rebecca Black song?
It's it's pretty close. Yeah. How's everybody doing?
Wow.
Groovy.
Penultimate day.
Penultimate. Oh, you're putting it so sadly. Or something.
Yes.
Just not sure what penultimate means. I looked at this and I said 10 o'clock for an hour. What do I do? I have no idea. So I thought we could kind of do basically a Q&A. Maybe I'll start with a tune, just for fun. Well, that's nice. Is there one in particular you'd like to hear? All right, I'll play this one. Which one?
It's fun to be lucky.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm getting in tune for that. So here we go. It's this weird tuning. It's an E minor 11th tuning. E A D G B E. You probably never tried it. So. Badly voiced E minor 11th tuning. Okay, so this tune's a good example of writing something really happy to get you through tough times. My wife Kelly died of cancer in 2001, so quite a long time ago. And I had two little girls to raise on my own, and as a touring musician, so it was an experience. And so I had this 7-year-old and a 9-year-old that I took out of school for a year and homeschooled, more like plain schooled them, or hotel schooled them or whatever, for a year. They came to 13 countries with me, and and they still talk about it. They're in their 30s now, and they say, "Oh yeah, I remember going down that street and turning around the corner, and you had the Eiffel Tower waiting for us around the corner. And, remember climbing Chichen Itza when you could do that and all that stuff." Anyways, they have kind of amazing memories of that year to this day, and fortunately they were just old enough to remember all of it. And we were just about to embark on our first trip after their mother died. I bought our first set of tickets to do a tour together, and the tour was going to start in the UK. So my little girl, she was 9 at the time, my girl Tara, she's on the phone with her friend. We lived in a very small town just northeast of Toronto in Canada, and we had a local phone system back then. So if you called somebody in the village, it was really loud on the phone. It was on the landline. It was just like you had to hold the phone away from your ear. So she's talking to her friend Madeline, and Madeline says, so I could hear both sides of the conversation in the kitchen. "So where are you going?" And Tara says, "Well, we're flying to London, and we're visiting friends in Norwich. Then Dad has to play at a festival in Belfast, and then we're going from Northern Ireland to Italy, and he's playing in Florence, and then in Rome, and then we're going up to Frankfurt, and then he's doing a bunch of shows in Germany, and then we're going to Vienna, and then we're flying home." And then her friend goes, "You're so lucky!" And she goes, "Yeah, it's fun being lucky." And I went, Tune title. Because I had this really upbeat tune that I had written to try to get over the deep blues I was in. So this is called "It's Fun Being Lucky." Finding new notes today. Thanks very much. Yeah, lost a nail in that one. I carried away. Nailed. Oh, I get it. Took me a second.
So early in the morning. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. So that tune is obviously influenced a lot by kind of like Motown, Philly soul kind of vibe. I kind of try to channel my inner Stevie Wonder when I play that tune, and so the chord language in it, the harmonic language, is kind of very of a style. So this first chord, this one here, very beautiful E major ninth chord. So that's E, G, B, so that's an E triad. And then you add the seventh, which is D sharp, and the ninth, which is F sharp, and you get this. And so it's a really great all-purpose, like these four strings in the middle, very good all-purpose major ninth chord. And down the neck, played anywhere. And or if you're like a John Mayer fan, he uses it in that tune, and very nice. But I wrote a tune when I was 15 with that chord, and so anyway, it's been in my chord language for a long time. The other big change is this one, which is a B chord, but it's basically an A major chord with a B on the bottom. I'm using it as the 5 chord, you know, the key of E, 5 is B. So between those two chords, you end up with a really nice sort of rocking back and forth between 1 and 5. But instead of just going, it's a lot more interesting, you know, much more colorful voicings. And this sort of master 11th chord voicing works up and down the neck also very nicely. And it's got this sort of instant, like when you hear it as a 5 chord, you kind of think, oh yeah, it sounds like a jazz tune, or it could be an R&B tune, or it could be an easy listening tune, or it could basically kind of 20th century and later kind of 5 chord. What the tune circles around. It's obviously more to it than that, but you know, it gets a little tiny bit Latinish in the middle when it changes key. Well, it doesn't really change key. It goes to the relative minor. It goes from E major to C sharp minor. It's quite cool. Nice chords again. Any questions about that? Just for fun. Questions about that tune? All right. It's just in standard tuning, and there is a transcription. Yes.
My question, I don't know anything about these fancy notes you're talking about.
These ones?
All notes, too many notes.
Too many notes.
No, when you write, a lot of your stuff to me is like happy, upbeat. I know you got a lot of songs, so but you told me that was the year after your wife had passed. Do you find in your writing process, is it like a counterbalance in your life when you are in creative mode and things are rough? Do you tend to be like, all right, I need to happy this shit out, or does that come naturally to you? Is it intentional? Because you had the title, as you said, came from your daughter. Mm-hmm. But you had this dope ass happy-go-lucky tune going on what I imagine is probably one of the worst times of your life.
Yeah.
Like, what's the well there? Like,
I think simply it was, I after Kelly died, for about a year, no, it wasn't a year. It was months. She was sick for 2.5 years, so I knew she was going for a while. And I'd already been basically a single dad and a nurse for quite a while. And so I didn't write any music for a good year, the last stage of her cancer thing. And then the first few months after she died, it just nothing came, I was just thought, I don't know if I'll ever write another tune kind of thing. And then that tune suddenly blurted out, and so then I thought, okay, I guess the mojo's back in terms of actually writing something. But I was still in this, really like, what the hell am I going to do kind of phase, right? And I got to keep making a living. This is what I do. I tour. I'm a musician, and I got these kids to take care of by myself. Like I was really stressed out.
right.
And then I thought, well, what's the best medicine? Be creative. Just try to compose yourself out of it, kind of thing. So that was a big time there. Now, in other times, sometimes it's just a landscape, meeting a certain person, having a certain experience, thinking back on a part of my life, and then all of those things can trigger a tune. And I wrote a tune called No Goodbyes when I was in Berlin one time, just because I'd made all these great new friends, and I was kind of sad to leave them. I knew I was looking forward to going home, but it was a very very pensive tune. Very simple thing in standard tuning on the baritone. So it really depends on what I'm going through. But I mean, almost anything can trigger me writing something. But the really significant tunes like that, I think they're pretty much major life events or major changes of scenery or major things I'm going through.
Can I follow up with one question?
Yes, supplemental.
So, like, I don't know what it's like for everybody. For me, I notice if I'm, whether it's painting music or whatever it is, if I'm sort of in like survival and just logistics mode, creativity doesn't seem to thrive in that.
Okay.
It sounds to me, and correct me, but you had this burst after a couple of years or so, you had this burst where that tune came out. Creativity sounds like it bubbles up. How do you turn that into discipline and harness that into like, all right, I need to like, idea.
Well, the good thing.
It doesn't sound like you sit around and wait for it.
No, the good thing for me is that I can imagine what I would do. Like a lot of my tunes have come to me walking down the street, literally like walking to the subway station or something. I think, or there's this thing. Oh, I have this idea. Yeah, a big cool bass line. Or maybe these changes will work. Maybe this little melodic figure. I'll start just imagining a tune, and it's a little amorphous clang in my head, and then I get home and I sit in front of an instrument or behind an instrument and figure something out based on that idea. Sometimes the tunes come almost fully formed already, so it's like I don't have to be at the instrument to write. So the creative process for me is kind of ongoing. I don't know, probably a lot of us in the room, it kind of feels like you constantly have a soundtrack going on in your head. I know that's how it is for me. The music just doesn't stop. I mean, I've always got music going through my head. And I almost can't walk without it becoming the tempo of a tune that starts going through my head. I mean, it's that crazy. Like it's been like that since I was a little kid. I'd be running to go play baseball and I'd have tunes in my head. I'm like that scene in Family Guy where Peter Griffin wishes he had his own theme music. I was like that. I was like the guy riding on the bus. It's been like that my whole life.
What do you do when it's not a song you want up there?
Yeah, that gets irritating. Usually it's this thing. It's like 3 notes long that just keeps buzzing. And yeah, at that point I don't know. I make more coffee or something. There was a question in the back.
Well, actually, you part of answered things of it. I was just wondering if you constantly think about theory and about modes and shapes while you're composing, or if you're just trying things out and, oh wow, that sounds nice, and afterwards when you describe it, you put it into theory and think about, is it a 9, is it a 11?
That's a really good question. I would say that earlier in my life, when I was sort of pre-literate as a musician, like before I really knew a lot about theory and harmony, I would just sort of go with whatever, the flow. And but then my very quick story is when I was 16, I grew up in Montreal. So I grew up in the coolest city in North America, right? It's the best place. So yeah, that's how I felt. No, it's just the most amazing place to grow up. And so I thought I was, going to have the coolest life I could possibly have had living in this great city. And then my dad announced that he got a transfer to Toronto. Now, when you grow up in Montreal, especially in the 70s like I did, you've never been to Toronto, but it sucks. Toronto is the worst town in the world. You would never, ever, ever want to live there, even though you know nothing about it.
There is a rivalry.
Yeah. So I thought, oh no, I don't want to move to Toronto. So I kind of figured I was just barely old enough. I have a sister who's 10 years older than me, and she was really super cool, and she lived right downtown Montreal. And she had a great big apartment. She lived there by herself. And I just went over to her place. I said, Mom and Dad, I'm moving to Toronto. I don't want to move to Toronto. And she said, oh, well, why don't we work something? She said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go to Vanier College and study music. And she goes, okay. So she talked to my parents. And she said, look, why doesn't Donnie live with me? You give him an allowance. I'll take care of him. It's fine. He can go to college. Everything's cool. He'll be in a safe place. And my parents were kind of like, oh, okay. They were a little reluctant to have me leave home so young. But I'd be with my sister. Okay, so it'd be cool. And so I applied, and then they set up my audition and my theory exam. And I could already play really well. And I was writing tunes and all this kind of stuff. So I showed up to the audition and feeling like a big shot, played really well. I even gave them a transcription of the tune. I thought that'll impress them. And it wasn't until afterwards that I realized I'd written it out as piano music instead of guitar music. I wrote it out in a grand staff. Wrong, okay? But I'd only ever read piano music really. So I thought, okay, well, that's how you write out music. So first big mistake. Second big mistake, theory exam. I sit down and I think, oh, no, I got no problem. I understand music. And the first question was, write out a G minor melodic scale, ascending and descending. I thought, okay, I know what G minor is. What's a melodic minor scale? It's different going up and down? Oh God, and the whole test was like that. I was just like, I have no idea. What's the relative minor of A flat major? I don't know. Like I was like, oh God, and so I left the theory exam thinking, I'm moving to Toronto. And then a week later, I got a letter saying, sorry, you can't come. Kind of. So I thought, oh no. So I very, very sadly moved to Toronto with my parents. And I was miserable for the first 6 months. Then I met a nice girl and everything was fine. but that was a big teaching lesson for me. So I got to Toronto and I thought, okay, I'm going to make the best of this. I went to the Royal Conservatory of Music down on Bloor Street. And I said, what's a good short theory book? They said, this one. It was $3. Looked like the sayings of Mao. It was a little red book, And I got home, I sat in front of my piano, and in 2 hours, I thought, that's it? This is all I needed to know? Oh my God, I just didn't know what stuff was called, really. And I thought, okay, I'm never doing that again. I'm never letting lack of knowledge about music ever get in my way again.
What's the book title?
It was called Rudiments and Theory of Music by the Royal Conservatory of Music. It's just a tiny little book. It just took you through rhythmic practice, took you through how scales and chords are put together, what they're called, blah, 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 just all the basics. I just sat there at the piano and figured it all out, went, Dummkopf. I was so upset with myself. So at that point, I thought, okay, then I eventually applied to go to university to study music in Toronto, got in, no problem, got a scholarship partway through. I mean, I was doing really well. And and then now I've got a master's degree in orchestration, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm a schooled musician, not a schooled guitarist. I've never studied guitar, but I'm a schooled musician. I understand my theory and my harmony and how to put music together and how to orchestrate and all this kind of stuff now. And so the very long answer to your question is, yes, theory and harmony go through my head all the time. But when I was younger and not as savvy to all of that, I just sort of went with my gut, and I thought, okay, well, that sounds nice. And that's a perfectly legit way to write music, You just put your fingers on the guitar and you say, well, what happens if I do this? Oh, that's kind of cool. What the hell? I don't know what it is, but it sounds cool. It sounds like I'm going to start a tune. So you can go ahead and do that for the rest of your life and everything's fine. You can make a living as a musician doing that. But for me, it's like, the nice thing is, like, I have a quartet that I play with sometimes. And I walk in with charts. People have never heard the tune before. And they'll say, oh, this 5/7 chord, do you want the sharp 9 in there? Yeah. Okay. Clang. And everybody speaks the same language. And the rehearsal takes 2 hours and we've learned these really complicated tunes, no problem. That's the big thing, is that you can walk into a situation like that and just go like that. Or you walk into a recording studio and somebody says, can you play this dobro part? Just read it off the page. We're making a radio commercial. It needs to be done in the next 30 minutes, And you sit there and go, okay, roll the tape, And that's the skill. That's where the skill comes in. Yes?
You talked about the orchestration studies you did, and
yes.
you did it recently, no?
Yeah.
During the pandemic. And has your guitar composing changed because of what you learned there?
Not really. No, not really. It's more like the other way around. It's like I was already sort of writing kind of. I always tell people I write in what are called vertical structures when I write guitar music. You can sort of think of music as being written with a horizontal structure or a vertical structure. Horizontal structure is basically melodicism, single notes, and that's cool. On the guitar, a lot of people write tunes. I mean, I won't mention names, but a lot of modern guitar players who write, especially in fingerstyle music, write tunes that have strong melodies and good bass lines. Not a lot of stuff in the middle. Not a lot of meat in the sandwich, So they're thinking very much in horizontal structures. The tune starts here and ends here, And as long as I have the melody and bass line interacting to a certain extent, then it'll sound pleasant. And that's the thing, it sounds pleasant, right? But if you think orchestrally, you think in vertical structures. So you're thinking not only melody and harmony, melody and bass line, you're thinking about the harmony in the middle. You're thinking about the whole sandwich, right? And so you kind of build this sandwich and then you move on to the next one. So that after a while, that just becomes the way you think about music. So for me, I was already thinking orchestrally. So to learn how to take that thinking and say, okay, well, this big chunk of stuff that's going on here, if I put this note in both the flutes and the oboes at the same time, that'll have a certain sound. And then if I put sort of the guts of the chord, maybe as an open voicing in the horns, little horn choir, that'll sound sweet, And then flesh the whole thing out with the strings so that you end up with this big, lush sounding thing, So that's how you have to start thinking. So when I studied orchestration, I'd already done arrangements for like string quintet and stuff like that, and some minimal kind of small ensemble stuff, chamber music. But to write for a 70-piece orchestra, it was the next step, basically. But fortunately, I had a little bit of experience. I just turned that experience into a much kind of bigger, fatter structure, So fortunately, but the guitar playing, I think, has benefited, but it hasn't really changed much. Yes?
About live performances, and if you may have some tips on deciding the order of the tunes. No?
It's a good question.
It changes from context to context, but yeah, it's something that I feel that I really have to improve, and I really would like to hear your idea on how you decide the order of the song.
Yeah, that's a great question. I tend to avoid using set lists when I play solo. I like the risk taking of that. It makes it feel exciting for me. Like even last night, Andrew was saying, "What's your last tune going to be?" And I honestly don't know. I haven't thought of it yet. And he was like, "No, that's cool, it's cool." And then I said, "Okay, when I go to play the last song, I'll say it's the last song." But yeah, like last night, I came out here and the guitar was in standard tuning, and I thought, okay, what can I play? Oh, I'll play the Jaco Pastorius arrangement, you know. And it's a cool tune. It's a very atypical tune. It's not one that you would hear a fingerstyle guitar player play normally, and it's just a really cool piece of music. So the pacing last night felt good to start with that. Then I thought I'll sing something. That's the next thing. So I did the Bruce Coburn tune. And then I played a couple of hits because I figured people want to hear some tunes of mine they've heard before. But if I'm doing a full program, basically what I do is I usually try to start with a tune that kind of kicks ass, you know, like I usually don't even say anything, just come out and play, you know. And it kind of does this to the audience, which is great. And then at this point, I have enough vocal music that I do about a third of the show vocally, because I personally find a whole night of solo guitar music kind of boring. Even if a person's really good, you know, it's just like, oh, another solo guitar tune, you know. Oh, there's another solo guitar tune. You know, it's like a lot too much of a good thing. It's like eating a box of chocolates on your own. You know? So it's nice. It's nice if somebody has the ability to, you know, play, you know, crazy tunes, really quiet tunes, vocal tunes, and now I you know, as much as possible, I love to collaborate. I know collaborating is hard because you have to have the right collaborator, you know, with enough talent and all that kind of stuff. You have to split the money and all that kind of stuff, but you split expenses too. And so sometimes I put my quartet together. I've been doing a lot of touring with a German guitarist named Julie Malia, and that's a great combination because it's a, you know, guitar, vocal. She's an amazing player. She's a great singer. You know, man, woman, Canada, Europe. It's just this interesting contrast, you know. But and when we play together, it sounds really glued together. So that kind of thing all that stuff is interesting for me because it makes the set list a lot more interesting. Coming up and just playing guitar tune after guitar tune after guitar tune, even if they're amazing guitar tunes, you know, to me it's too. So I try to vary it, but like I say, I don't use set lists. So I basically, as I'm playing a tune, I'll think, okay, I'm in this tuning, I'm playing this kind of vibe. What would be good after this? You know, where I don't have to retune too much because I want the show to keep going. And should I sing a song? What's not far from this in tuning? It should be an instrumental, should be downbeat, upbeat. I'm thinking all this while I'm playing the tune, you know? And I know that would drive a lot of people crazy. They want to have a set list, and I know what song I'm playing next. But I've just never done that. I like it. I do the Grateful Dead thing. I don't know what I'm playing. I don't know. What's that bad smell? Anyway, yes. Other questions? What did Jerry Garcia say when the pot ran out?
We gotta get
What's that?
Man, these guys suck.
Yeah. What's that terrible noise? Anyway, yes.
How many of the tunes can you play?
How many of my own tunes can I play?
Yeah.
Probably pretty much all of them, except I would have to work on a couple of them for 10 minutes or something before the show. If somebody had a special request that I had not played, because I guess I've recorded like 200 tunes, right? And so it's like, okay, not 200 completely distinct tunes. I've re-recorded a few songs, but I've probably recorded maybe 120, 150 different tunes. And fortunately, I remember pretty much all of them. The other day, it was a few months ago, I was playing out in Western Canada, and Julie and I were selling our CDs, and then this gal comes up, she says, oh, I have a special request. I said, what? She said, could you play Carolyn's Quarrel with the Landlady? Now this is a tune I arranged. It's an Irish harp tune. I arranged it in the 1980s or 90s or something, and I hadn't played it in 15 years. And I said, okay, I'll probably have to go into the woodshed for a minute and remember it. But then the sales were so good, we didn't want to interfere with the money making, right? So we're there. And then Julie says, well, you better start by yourself and play that request, but you're not going to play that tune. I said, yeah. And she goes, no. And I said, yeah, I'm going to have to. I said I would. So as I'm walking up to the stage, I'm playing the tune really quickly instead of just doing this, you know, and then plug in and I said, okay, I got a request, and I played the tune. And I kind of blew my own mind because I only made one big mistake. And then afterwards, I thought to myself, I did the joke on stage. I said, you know, people were saying, how the hell you remember that tune? And I said, well, my old line used to be a mortgage and 3 children. So if you have to remember something in order to feed your family, you'll remember it, you know. But in my case, it was repertoire. Yes, in the back.
How do you warm up before a show, right hand and left hand? Do you have any exercise?
I will admit I'm very bad about warming up. I should probably not be so bad about warming up, but I'm bad about warming up. I tend not to do it. But I think in my case, at various times in my life, I've had the guitar in my hand so much of the time that I haven't had to. But sometimes I'll just put the guitar away for a week, and I just think to myself, okay, I don't want to play any music. I don't want to think about music too much. I just want to listen to music and nothing else. And then I'll go to play again, and I'll go, okay, before I press play and record, or before I go out on stage, just better play a few things just to get the cobwebs off, you know. But you know, fortunately, I've had very few mobility problems as a result. I had a bit of tendonitis about 25 years ago. It got quite sore, but again, knock on wood. The only thing I got left was a ganglion here. That's from tendonitis. But otherwise, I've had no repetitive motion injuries. So I probably should warm up, but I never have. Isn't that weird? It's so stupid. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, a question about writing new music. With all the theory background and all your history of music in the books, how do you keep like surprising yourself or not ending up doing the same thing? You mentioned certain tunings that you avoid to go into shapes.
Yeah.
But like, what are your thoughts on that?
First and foremost, I tend to compose away from the guitar. So that might mean composing in my head, or keyboard is a strong second instrument for me. So I very often compose at the piano. And I'll just plunk out some ideas and, you know, some changes and think, okay, well, that would work. So can I translate that into a guitar tune? And then I'll learn a tune that I started writing on the piano. And just as an aside, that's what Pat Metheny does all the time. He always writes at the keyboard, and then he learns the tune on the guitar. And he does it for the same reason I do. It's to avoid your hands just going to those old familiar places on the instrument all the time. Because we all do that, right? We all just, oh yeah, I like this chord, and I'll play this chord again, and I'll play it again. Oh, there's that chord again that I like so much. And, you know, it's like me. Every time I tune my guitar, I play that chord. I mean, it never fails. That makes sure that I'm in tune, but also I just like that chord, right? So I'll go to familiar places too. So that's one way of avoiding it. Another way of avoiding it is saying, okay, I have this crazy idea. I know it won't work in an open chord tuning. I know it won't work in probably any of the other tunings I have. So I'll start in standard, and then, okay, that's not working. I might tweak a note here, tweak a note there. Then I end up with a totally, you know, custom tuning for one piece. And then it makes the piece playable. And it makes it so that, yeah, okay, it sounds like Don playing, but it doesn't sound exactly like any of his other tunes, you know. So those are the tricks for me. If you have another instrument, like another harmonic instrument, like a piano that you can write on, even if it's not your main instrument, it's a really great way to avoid sounding like yourself the way you've sounded in the last 5 tunes you wrote. Question?
Would you mind talking a little bit about your approach to practice, maybe when you were starting out guitar? What were those early days like for you, and maybe what's it like for you now as well?
Yeah. Early on, what I tended to do was something that I do encourage people to do when they study with me, is find music that you really like and see if maybe there's an existing arrangement or transcription for it. Now, in the case of learning another guitarist's tune, for the most part, I try to encourage my students to learn the tunes for the sake of building their technique. You know, it's like, for example, I was talking about learning these Hedges tunes off the record back in the 80s. For me, it was not just an ear challenge, but also he was doing things on the instrument that I had never thought of. So I thought, well, what's he doing? You know, how's he achieving that? And once I figured out how he achieved it, then I felt that, okay, maybe I'll incorporate that technique into my playing. Maybe I won't, but at least I know how to do it if I ever want to do it. So having enough sort of tools in the toolbox. That for me, as I went through my early years of playing and learning the instrument, that really helped. And learning tunes by Bruce Coburn, a couple of which I still do play. He was a great early influence on my playing. You know, great songwriter, great guitar player, really inventive, really unusual technique on the guitar. So all these things that I and then early on, even before that, learning Joni Mitchell tunes, you know, and open tunings, and all these people who became big influences on who I became as a musician. But I don't sound exactly like Bruce. I don't sound exactly like Joni. I don't sound exactly like Michael. I've got my own weird take on things. But part of that is because I got into all kinds of other musical activity that wasn't just playing the guitar and not just playing solo. So in terms of early development, I always encourage people, learn other people's tunes, try to get inside their head, not just their hands. Like try to say to yourself, why did they choose this tuning? Why did they choose these chords? How do these chords work? Where do they go? You know, how does the melody work? Like really use your ears. Don't just, the problem overall is that people are so reliant on tablature now that it's gotten to the point where it's basically they know the tune already, they just need the numbers, right? And I think, okay, well, but there's all this other in-between stuff that you're kind of leaving out when you do it that way. And that's what I was conscious of all the time when I was younger. And it's what I try to encourage in my students. Yes, Randy?
If you're a guitarist, you're a great guitarist, and you're convinced you'll never be able to sing, how do you break through that to start doing something different and singing? People are convinced that they can't sing. And I think if you can talk, you can sing.
I tend to agree with you. And I think that a lot of us have been discouraged from singing when we're younger because we have an aunt or something who's a choir director. Oh, you're not a good singer. Whatever it was, you know. I've heard that sad story so many times. Oh, people told me I couldn't sing, so I didn't. And fortunately, nobody told Bob Dylan he can't sing because he can't sing. But what a character he's got in his voice. Look at all the amazing songs he wrote. I mean, if you like the character of his voice, you'll buy his records. I mean, Leonard Cohen, nobody told him he couldn't sing. Neil Young, yeah, there's a whole lot of people you can point to and say, well, they're not good singers, but they have character. And when they do this thing, even if you compare them to, you know, Pavarotti or Mariah Carey or whatever, no, they can't sing like that. But they, you know, they can sing like this, it's this thing, and it's what they do, right? Like there's that great little scene when they made the all Canadian all-star thing for Ethiopia, Tears Are Not Enough. And when you watch the documentary, there, you know, there's Joni and there's Anne Murray and there's Bruce Coburn and there's Murray Goff and all these people. There's Neil Young, and he does his line, and David Foster's producing, and he says, just the pitch on the end of the line, and then Neil says, that's my sound, man. And he was right. That's the Neil Young sound to sing off key. That's his sound. So, and you know, Tom Waits. I can think of all kinds of people. So for me, you know, listening to certain singers, it's the adventure of what they do, even if it's not technically great. Same with guitar playing. I can love really dirty, squeaky, not very high-end guitar playing if it's got character, if it's got this musical thing going on. Yeah, you know, people listen to Joseph Spence and go, what the hell, you know? But it's an interesting sound, you know? So with the singing thing, I always try to encourage people, look, you know, even if you think you're not a good singer, give it a go. You might find an audience. If you really decide, no, I don't want to sing on stage, that's cool, that's fine. So get as bloody good in your instrument as you possibly can, and try to develop a personality on the instrument. That's what I really encourage people. Like don't play just like everybody else, because that other person already does it. It's like many years ago, I covered a Pierre Ben Suzanne tune on a little cassette album I did, and I gave him a copy, and I said, I don't play it like you do. He says, that's good. He says, I already do that, he said. So yeah, he was right. Other questions, comments? Yes?
you're playing a lot of instruments, but what about guitars? How many guitars do you have, and do you have a special relationship to one instrument or the other? Because I have only one guitar, and it's my precious.
Yeah. I would be very sad not to have guitars, but at the same time, I don't have a lot of guitars, and I don't have. Definitely, this is a great instrument. I love this instrument. I love playing it. I have this very good relationship with this builder, Mark Beneteau. He's built me 9 guitars over the years. I currently own 4 of them. I have this one, it's a cedar and mahogany guitar. I have a twin of this one, but it's spruce and cocobolo. It lives in Canada. This one lives in Europe, because I'm over here so much. And then I have a baritone guitar that he made, and I have a harp guitar that he made. It's an amazing instrument. And I have other instruments. I have lap steels, 2 of them. I have a dobro guitar, like a slide guitar. I have a fretless electric guitar, which is cool for scoring, getting really weird notes. And I have an electric guitar that's a MIDI guitar, which I can use to fire samples and stuff like that, which is great in my studio. I use it on stage sometimes too, occasionally, if I'm playing collaboratively. So I only own about 7 guitars maybe, but they're all really different, except for the 2 that are kind of standard pitch guitars. Other than that, they're all a bit weird. I don't develop huge personal relationships with the guitar. If it's time to sell it, I'll sell it, and I'll turn the money into another instrument or whatever. That's fine. Something I need, right? So I'm a professional. I need enough tools. But I don't have a house full of guitars. I know people who have far too many instruments. And to me, it's like having too many collectible spoons, Like why do you need so many? I don't understand. Other questions, comments? Yes?
One thing that shines through with so much of your composition is this impeccable sense of groove. At least that's what I was associated with you a lot.
Thank you.
It's something I kind of sometimes struggle with when composing stuff on my own, like getting this, it's a really funky bass runs, or like always having that drive in there somehow. Can you elaborate on how you approach that? Maybe?
Grew up listening to a lot of funk and R&B. That's what I did. A lot of it is the subject. It's a product of where and when I grew up. I grew up in Montreal, which was a funky town in Canada. Before a lot of R&B and soul and funk and bands took off in the rest of Canada, they'd play in Montreal all the time. Very often they had this thing called the Chitlin Circuit that they would play the northeastern states, and play all the towns, but then they'd poke over the border just to play in Montreal because they've got a huge reception there. So growing up, I was always hearing Stevie Wonder, James Brown, the Barkays, OJs, all these bands on the radio. And then my older brother, my late older brother, he was a big influence on my music taste. So he'd be running to the hardware store, which is where we bought records, and he'd come home with the latest James Brown tune, or he came home with Sly and the Family Stone. Thank you for letting me be myself again. That was the first song I figured out off a record. Again, just like, that's the whole song, right? But I thought, look what I done! Oh boy! I thought I'd win the Nobel or something. So I grew up listening to all that stuff, and then got listening to very syncopated, very funky music, and became a jazz fan early on too, which is full of syncopation. So all those things. A lot of it is a taste thing. I think that you can learn almost as much just by listening to music as you can by playing music. So that's like when I did my music education, a big part was going to the music library and listening to certain tunes that you were assigned to listen to, because then you knew what this stuff sounded like, right? Otherwise you just wouldn't be exposed to it. So if you grew up in Europe, it's a different kettle of fish. You didn't grow up with the same stuff on the radio, and I understand why it's tricky. But I think that, again, it's like anything else. If you want to develop those skills, you listen to players who play like that, not just guitar, but bands and sax players and everything else, and you try to emulate a little bit what they're doing, and you take it apart. You say, oh, the melody is always just ahead of the beat. That's what's making it sound so cool, Boom, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom, ba, boom, ba, ba, boom, that kind of thing. Oh, I'll try that. Try writing something that sounds like that. So those are the kinds of things that make it. You have to study it. You really do. If you didn't grow up with it, you have to study it, and then it becomes clearer as you go along. Did I ever see James Brown live? I feel like I did, but I didn't. I've got DVDs of him, and I'm freaking out. But no, I never saw him live. Finally saw Stevie Wonder live.
When?
2015 in Philadelphia. I had a day off, and he was doing the Songs in the Key of Life album, which is like the best record. and I was sitting there, and it was cool because I was in Philadelphia at an African American artist concert. Everybody was African American. There's Don sitting in among all these people, and then the first tune comes on, "Love's in Need of Love Today," and I started weeping. Because this album for me is like changed my life, and I'm like crying. And then the lady next to me, she holds my hand. She says, "It's okay, brother. We're all here together." Question here.
I was just wondering, could you maybe demonstrate what we just said, that you play the melody just ahead of the beat? Because, it's just something little.
Sure. For example, well, here's a very early tune. What's the tuning for it? I have to make sure I'm getting the right tuning. So I wrote this tune 35 years ago, but it's kind of the first tune I wrote that was kind of a little bit on the funky side. And it's on my very first album. It goes. I haven't played it in years. Something like that. So you can hear how, right away, it's not just, it's, so that's a 16th push. Those are push too. So everything's, like, if you think of it as, so, and then even the bass line. Sometimes I do that, You can always hear where the beat is, but so much activity is happening away from the on beat. So either before or after. And that's part of what makes something sound really funky, but keeping the groove is really important. It's always, Bootsy Collins, the great funk bass player, played with Parliament Funkadelic and all that stuff. They said, what's the key to great funk bass playing? He says, play on the one. I tell you, it's got to be one, and then everything else after that you can mess with, but one has to be there. But then after one, you have to remember that, anything that's kind of African-based music, the stresses are on 2 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to think like that. In European style, sometimes you play a really funky tune and people are always going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I always think of Prince's line, "Do you hippies always clap on the one?" Anyway, so I'm not sure where we are for time.
Well, we got one more question.
Okay, one more question.
What's the tuning again? Just the tune?
This one was a DAC FCD.
It's not the
question.
There's another question?
I've got a question. I would love to hear about your approach to Crazy.
Oh, that tune, yeah.
Because are you familiar with Bob Lefsetz's?
Yeah,
Did you get to see that light up?
Yeah, I had never heard of him before then, and then somebody said, "Hey, congratulations on getting mentioned by Bob Lefsetz," and I thought, "Who the hell's Bob Lefsetz?" So then, but that day, suddenly that tune had 100,000 views on my YouTube or whatever. So this guy Bob Lefsetz, at least then, I'm not sure what he's up to now. He's got a podcast now or something. But he was writing this newsletter that was very influential, that got freely circulated, and he talked about popular music. And
Actually, because
Sure.
everyone will appreciate the level of talking about popular music, the Taylor Swift song "Why You Gotta Be So Mean" is about Bob.
yeah, he's really pretty cutting. You know, he's I subscribed to his newsletter for about a year after I was in it, and I thought I have to unsubscribe. This is getting me down. He's always talking about how people fail all the time. Just like, give me a break. And even the one where he mentioned me, he mostly talked about Justin Bieber. I don't know why, but he started talking about me, and he ended talking about me, and all the middle was about Justin Bieber.
He's a actor.
Couldn't quite figure that one out. But the version of Crazy that I recorded, I liked the tune. I heard it on the radio. I thought, that's really, really great tune. I don't do a lot of covers, but I thought, maybe for fun on stage, I'll just play that one, think about it. And I listened to the tune. It's in C minor. And I thought, it's okay, C minor, not really a guitar key. But I play a lot of tunes in C minor because I use tunings that are C minor friendly, C minor adjacent. And so one of the tunes is called Michael, Michael, Michael. I played it last night. And the tuning is C, G, C, G, B flat, C. And so, really quickly, I know we're short on time. Approximately in tune, but that's the tuning for Michael, Michael. And then I listened to the song, the chorus, da 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 da. It sounds like a lot of notes. No, it's 3 notes, and the 3 notes they're in the tuning. And I thought, there we go. so that was my starting point. So and then I just figured out the rest of the melody, like. Was all fitting really nicely in first position. Then I found these really cool chords, like the changes in the tune are really neat. So it's C minor, E flat major, 7th if you want, A flat, G, that's what it's based on. So really nice E flat major 9th chord. So this is a harmonic idea where you sort of harmonize every single melody note with a different chord. Oh, sorry, that was wrong. It's all parallel harmony, and I'm out of tune, but trust me. And then whatever it is, and then that's the verse basically, and then here's the chorus. Hey, it's in harmonics, really nice. There's a little bridge, changes mode, goes to C major, A flat, the tuning really lent itself to it. So yeah,
Are there tabs?
There are tabs, yes. I guess we should wrap up, but thank you very much, and you had great questions.